So have you ever wanted to drive a car for free? Well, I think everybody will want to drive a car for free, and how can you drive a car for free? That's something I want to talk about today. So the way that you can drive a car for free, how to get a car for free, is you can buy a universal remote, car remote, go to the most crowded parking lot you can find, and just keep clicking that unlock button until you hear one of those cars unlock, and then you can go into that car and drive off with it. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. And when I mean driving a car for free, I also don't mean driving your parents' car for free. I mean having your own car under your name and driving it for a certain amount of time for free. So, and this is based off of my experiences, something that I did. I actually got paid, quote unquote, to drive a car for a little over a year. So I want to go over some steps that you can take so you can drive a car for free. Hey guys, it's Jerry here with Modern Advantage, and today I want to talk about a few steps that you can take, financial steps that you can take to drive a car for either little money, no money, so essentially free, or even get paid to drive a car. So the very first step, before you could even drive a car for free, you need to obtain a car somehow, right? So step number one would be to buy a used car, and not just any used car. There's a strategy to this. So the car has to be at least 6 years old. 6 years old or older. Now you might be thinking, whoa, hey Jerry, that's a little old, man. Like, won't it break down on me? And we'll get to that later. We'll go over those doubts later in regards to reliability and vehicles that last long and vehicles that break down and vehicles that might have some maintenance issues. So we'll go over that in a couple more steps. But for now, buying a used car that's 6 years or older is probably the most financially smart decision to make when you buy a vehicle. And the reason why is because over the course of 5 years, according to NerdWallet, the vehicle will lose over 60% of its value. So let's say you buy a new car for $20,000. In 5 years or 6 years, that car will be worth $7,000 to $8,000, and even then, that would probably be the most you can get out of it, because a lot of people don't take care of their cars, especially over those years. I mean, you own a car for 6 years, it's bound to get scratched up, or something would have happened to it to where it decreases the value even more. So you start off with this, you find a used car, you look for a used car that's about 6 years or more, 6 years old or more. And in my case, I actually have both my vehicles are actually much older than 6 years. I have a 4Runner that's 13 years old, and I have a Highlander that's also 13 years old. Actually, the 4Runner's 14 years old and the Highlander's 13 years old. So they're double the age of 6 years old. Step number two is to buy a vehicle that has a good reputation, that has good reliability. So some of the most common brands that you've heard about that last forever are Toyota, Honda, Lexus, and there's even some GM products, specific models, where those vehicles they've lasted a long time as well. So it's not just Toyota, Honda, and Lexus, which honestly you probably won't go wrong with any of those. But there are some GM brands where you can find a car that's a little bit cheaper than the Toyota, Honda, or Lexus, and you'll still get good reliability out of it. You would have to be a little bit more nitpicky and search for specific engines, specific years, specific models, or even trim levels to get a reliable vehicle with GM. So once you find a used car that's about 6 years old or more, even 10 years old, once you get to like the 10-year-old mark, you can get a much better deal, and they could still be just as reliable as a 6-year-old car, even as reliable as a new car. So after you find a reliable vehicle for a good price, you go to step number 3, which is when you have that car in your possession, it is very important to conduct regular recommended maintenance. So keep that vehicle maintained. So what does this mean? It means changing your oil every 3,000 miles if you use conventional oil, or changing your oil every 5,000 miles if you use synthetic oil. Changing your air filters, the in-cabin air filter and the engine air filter. Changing your wipers, changing your tires when appropriate. Certain things like that, just basic maintenance, keeping your the fluids in your engine bay leveled up, and making sure your radiator is not overheating. Some of the old cars, the radiator might overheat just over time, it gets bad. Well, you want to change that out as well. So pretty much just doing regular recommended maintenance on these vehicles is super important. And to go along with that, another thing that's extremely important as well is to keep the maintenance records and the receipts on those. And let me tell you why. I've dealt with this a lot. When you go to buy a used car, let's say you're selling your used car, you've maintained it well over a year or 2 years. You've maintained it, you change the oil every time, the air filters, the coolant system, the coolant fluid, the transmission fluid, you've changed it out. Well, if you save the receipts of where it shows that you actually did this maintenance, when you go to sell the car, you can advertise that in the listing of the car, that you have proof that this car was maintained well by you, that you did take care of it. That will boost its value up a decent amount, and people are more inclined to buy vehicles that have been taken care of, and that's pretty much proof that you took care of it. The next step is actually also very important. Step number 4 is to avoid expensive mods. Please, I see so much people they have a used car. I've even seen, this happens a lot in the Toyota Corollas and the Honda Civics. They'll have this very reliable used car that they're not paying anything on. And they put so many mods. They'll put mufflers, neon lights, lift kits, paint jobs. Maybe not lift kits on the cars, maybe more on from small SUVs to large pickup trucks. But sometimes they're so expensive and they do not add value to the vehicle. If they add value to the vehicle, it's not even close to the amount that you paid for it. So if you're just using that car just to go to work, just to commute, don't add expensive mods. There is no need to add expensive modifications to it, especially if you plan on selling it later to upgrade or to buy a new car. Save that money. Save it to where you buy that car in the future that you saved up many years for and that you're gonna keep for the rest of your life. Don't invest in something that you're not keeping long term. And I wouldn't do it at all, because you never know. Even if you think that you're gonna keep the car long term, and then you end up selling it. You know what I'm saying? You lose money. Don't do it. So number 5, the last step would be to sell the car privately. List it on Craigslist, on eBay, or on other websites that autotrader.com, cars.com. Use those websites to list your vehicle as a private party seller. And you can look up the private party value on Kelley Blue Book, on Carfax, or other websites that you can Google, and list it for the going price for private sale. And here's where driving your car for free comes in play. To go back to step one, you would have had to bought that car. You would have had to negotiate that car for under the private party value. So before you buy that car, I know we're already going to sell a car, but you need to remember, before you would have bought that car, you would have had to negotiate to pay less than the private sale value. And how do you do that? With cash. For the most part, with cash. You show up, you test drive the car, and you have a set amount that you want to offer on that car. And don't just go for the first one you see either. Shop around and take the best deal for the car. If the car's in good condition, well, then get the best deal that you can get, So then once you would have bought that car for, let's say, $1,500 under the asking price, under the private party sale value, $1,500. Well, maybe you won't even spend half of that on gas during the year, or on gas and maintenance during the year that you actually drive it. So number 5 would be to sell the car privately and create a very detailed listing. So everything that you've done to the car, all the features about the car, all the good things about the car. If it's got new tires or tires in very good condition, how's the paint? Is it a smooth ride? Is the gas mileage good? Is the brand reliable? Because people are more inclined to buy a brand that's more reliable. And you want to sell it at that going price or higher, depending on how well you maintained it. And this is where the records come in play. So you have records of all the maintenance, and you have a Carfax report or some car report where it shows that your car, everything about your car, that your car's in this condition, hopefully good or higher. And let me tell you how I did it with my car. So I had Toyota Camry, 2005 Toyota Camry. I'll put a picture so you can see what I'm talking about. Actually, it was a 2006 Toyota Camry. It was actually a really nice car. It drove very well. So I bought this car for about $4,000, and I drove it for 14 months. I drove that car. And the only thing that I put into it was regular maintenance. So I did the oil changes. I did the air filter changes. I did change the spark plugs, which I want to say spark plugs. I changed a gasket on the front as well. So I did some maintenance, to it. So the total that I paid for that car over those 14 months, this is including gasoline as well. Everything that I paid for that car and I put into that car was a total of $5,062, because I also put some motor mounts. I bought brand new factory motor mounts and I put them on the engine. So the total that I paid was $5,062. I bought the car for $4,000, but with everything that I put into it over the course of the 14 months, including gas, was $5,062. And when I went to sell it, I sold it for $5,500. So I pretty much drove this car for 14 months for $440 in my favor. I was pretty much paid $440 to drive this car. Isn't that crazy? Well, that's what you can do if you can negotiate on a used car. So those are the steps. I hope you learned something from this. If you did, go ahead and give the video a like. That'll just motivate me more to give you some financial experience that I've had. I know I'm pretty young, I'm still in my 20s, but I've made a lot of decisions that I think were good financial decisions that I don't see a lot of people doing. So that's why I'm making these videos, so that when you go to make important financial decisions, especially if you're in your 20s or you're young and you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do about a car, about a home, or whatever it may be. Just maybe you can learn from some experiences that I've had, from some information that I'm giving out. So I'll catch you all in the next one.